Today, I want you to dig up a memory from deep in your childhood. One of those memories that seems silly until you remember a detail that just doesn't fit. Because today's video is all about that. Memories that got stuck in your head not as nostalgia, but as a warning. Things that happened when we were too young to understand, and that only makes sense, or get even worse, when we grow up. And hey, pay attention. There are two stories. Two accounts where the fear doesn't come from blood or screaming. It comes from a house that's too quiet, from a touch in the wrong place, from someone who knows your name for no reason. So tell me now, do you have any childhood memory that still gives you the chills today? Comment below, because I really want to read them. Now, take a deep breath, because the first story begins with an ordinary little house, a quiet street, and a toy chest that insisted on opening by itself, as if someone was looking for exactly the thing you wanted to hide most. Some childhood memories are like old photos, a little blurry, smelling of dust, with a yellow light over them. Mine has sound, and it's not the sound of a creaking house. It's the sound of something alive trying not to be noticed. I must have been about 9 when we lived in that little house on a quiet street. One of those where kids ride bikes until dark and nobody thinks it's strange. My mom worked a lot, my sister was little, and I was the typical older brother who acted brave, but slept with the blanket pulled up to my nose, as if fabric were a shield. My room was simple. A bed against the wall, a slightly crooked dresser, and near the window, a heavy wooden toy chest with a lid that made a dry thud when it closed. And I always closed it, because my mom had a very clear rule: scattered toys meant trouble. So I had that automatic, almost religious care. Played, put away, closed. And that was it. But the house seemed to have its own rules. One night I woke up in the dark, that way you wake up for no reason, with your heart beating like someone called your name. I lay there looking at the ceiling, trying to tell myself it was just another silly scare. There were some glow-in-the-dark stickers on the ceiling. Little stars that soaked up light during the day, and at night turned into a kind of sad constellation. I used to count the stars until I fell asleep, because kids do that. They make a routine so they don't think about what's outside the blanket. But that day, before I even started counting, I noticed something. The shadows of the trees outside made patterns on the wall, swaying with the wind. Normal. But there was a shadow down there, in the corner near the chest, that didn't move with the others. It wasn't big, it wasn't a movie silhouette. It was just a darker spot, like the room had an extra piece of night in that corner. And the worst part, it seemed still, stuck in place. I blinked again. I tried to find a quick explanation, anything that wasn't, "There's something here with me." It must be a pile of clothes, I thought, or a fallen stuffed animal. And then comes that part where you do the silliest thing in the world, but you do it because you're trying to be normal. I almost laughed. A nervous little laugh all by myself, in the dark, as if that would fix anything. But when I laughed, the dark spot vanished. It vanished as if someone had turned off a light, as if it had never been there. And then I felt cold. But not the cold from the air. It was a cold from inside, like when you get a big scare and your stomach drops. I pulled the blanket over my head, held my breath, and stayed super still. Listening. Nothing. Total silence. And that's when silence turns into sound, right? Because you start hearing your own head, your heart, your breathing, the tiniest noises in the world. I must have fallen asleep from being so tired. I just remember waking up with the sun hitting the window and that feeling of, it was just a dream. Until I looked at the chest, the lid was open. And not just a little bit open, like a tiny crack. It was wide open, like someone had lifted it with force, looked for something inside, and left without even pretending to care. I stood there for a while, just looking. The first thing that came to my mind was my mom's rule, not fear. She's going to be mad. Can you believe it? My worry was getting in trouble, not ghosts. I quickly closed the chest, arranged the toys on top, like I was hiding proof. I didn't tell anyone. and for a few weeks, I tried to forget. I almost did really well. Kids forget easily when they want to. But the house didn't want me to. My sister, who was about 5 years old, started doing something strange. Before bed, she would stare at the door of her bedroom closet with a serious little face, like she was listening to a conversation. One night, my mom went to put her to bed and asked, in that tired mom voice, "What are you looking at, sweetie?" And my sister answered in such a normal, casual tone that it made the hair on my neck stand up, even from far away. "The man doesn't like it when I close it." My mom let out a sigh like, "Oh, for heaven's sake," and laughed, the way grown-ups laugh at things they don't want to take seriously. "There's no man, it's your imagination." But I looked at my sister and saw that she wasn't playing around. She didn't even seem scared, actually. She seemed used to it. Like it was just something that happens, and that's that. My mom, to end the conversation, did what many moms do. She kissed her, said a quick prayer, and told her everything was fine. She didn't open the closet. She didn't look for anything. She just turned off the light and left. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard that. But that very same night I woke up to a sound in my room. A low, steady sound, like something was being dragged slowly across the floor. It wasn't the floorboards creaking. It was more rough, like a fingernail on wood. Very soft, but close. I didn't move. You know when you're sure that if you turn your head, you'll see exactly what you don't want to see? Yeah, that. My whole body turned to stone. I just held my blanket tight and stared into the dark, trying to see without seeing. The sound got closer. It stopped next to my bed, and then silence. Silence again, but this time the silence felt heavy. I waited for something, anything, a breath, a step, a whisper, but nothing happened. I must have fallen back asleep because I woke up with the daylight and went straight to look at the floor next to my bed with that childish hope of, "There's nothing there, see?" There was. There were some marks, long and thin, like something had scratched the wood many times in the same spot. It wasn't deep, but it was fresh. The wood was light where the varnish had been scratched. I ran to show my mom. She was really mad, not worried. "What did you do this with?" I said I didn't do it. I swore. I said it seriously, with my voice shaking, trying to get her to see me as an honest kid and not a kid making up stories. She took a deep breath, looked at the floor, and gave the quickest explanation ever. "You must have dragged the toy chest, or some toy. Stop it." The funny thing is, her explanation didn't even make sense. The toy chest wasn't even there, and I knew it. She knew it. But it was easier to blame a child than to face a house. After that, things got more frequent. Sometimes I'd wake up to a whisper so soft I couldn't make out any words, just that feeling of a radio not tuned in right. And the whisper always seemed to come from the same spot, the hallway, near my sister's room. And my sister started waking up crying, pointing to the corner of her room, repeating, "He's there, he's there." I never saw anyone, never saw a face, a hand, nothing. But I felt it. And feeling is sometimes worse because you can't fight it with logic. You know that feeling when you sense someone watching you, even with your eyes closed? That tingle in your arm, the hair standing up, your throat tightening? It was like that. But every night. The strangest night, the one that stuck like a thorn, was during a cold time in the middle of winter. I woke up and saw my door was open. I always closed the door. Always. Not because I was afraid of monsters, but because I hated drafts. And yet, it was open, letting a rectangle of light from the hallway into the room. My mom used to leave a dim light on in the hallway because of my sister. I kept looking at that light, trying to figure out why it felt wrong. The light wasn't strong, but it lit up enough for me to see the outline of the dresser, the faint glow of the little stars on the ceiling. And then the hallway light went out. It didn't just turn off. It seemed swallowed, as if the darkness had passed over it. I thought, the bulb burned out. And then I heard footsteps. Footsteps in the hall, slow, not in a hurry, like the person knew no one would do anything. They stopped right at my door. I wanted to call my mom. I wanted to scream. But no sound came out. My throat felt like it was tied in a knot, and I could only take short, quick breaths, like the air was getting heavy. The door creaked a little, like someone pushed it with 2 fingers, and a shadow came in. Not a whole body, just the top part, leaning into the room, as if it was looking at me. I didn't see eyes. I didn't see a mouth. Just a dark presence outlined against the little bit of light coming from my own room. And then I did what kids do when they don't have the tools to deal with the impossible. I pretended. I closed my eyes and pretended I was asleep. I stayed perfectly still, hoping that thing would believe me, hoping it would go away. When I opened my eyes again, I don't know how much later, the door was closed. The next day I asked my mom, trying to sound normal, "Did you come into my room last night?" She didn't even lift her head properly. "No, I slept all night." My sister, drinking milk, looked at us and said, like she was talking about the morning cartoon, "The man stood by my bed." That's when, for the first time, my mom became quiet. She didn't get mad. She didn't laugh. She just stood still, staring into space, like she was remembering something she didn't want to remember. At the end of that afternoon, she did something I had never seen before. She took a candle, lit it, and walked through the house, room by room, speaking softly. It was a prayer, a request, a kind of talk with the air. For a few days, it worked, or at least it seemed to, until the afternoon I got home from school before her. The house was too quiet. You know that quiet of an empty house that feels bigger than usual? I sat on the couch, opened my notebook, and started doing homework, trying to ignore the feeling that I was alone, but not alone. And then I heard it. The thud of the chest. It wasn't a thud of a lid falling open. It was a thud of a lid being shut hard, as if someone wanted to make their presence known. As if to say, "I have rules here too." My whole body went cold. I looked down the hallway. Nothing. The cat? We didn't even have a cat. The wind? The chest was heavy. It wouldn't close from the wind, not even if the world ended. I slowly got up, walking carefully, as if noise would draw attention. I got to my room. The door was open, and the chest was closed. But the toys were all scattered on the floor, as if someone had turned the chest inside out and left them there just to show me they could. I didn't go in. I took 2 steps back and went to wait outside, sitting on the front step with my notebook on my lap, pretending I was fine, but I couldn't even read a line. When my mom arrived, I told her. She listened to me, looked over, and gave some random explanation that didn't make sense. "You must have left the chest not quite closed. It opened." There, I almost yelled, but I heard it close. But I learned early on that when an adult doesn't want to believe, they won't, no matter what you say. We moved out a while later. It wasn't because of this, at least not officially. It was rent, it was work, it was life. But I remember seeing my mom packing faster, more determined than usual, as if she wanted to leave quickly too. Years later, when I was old enough to talk about these things without sounding like a kid making stuff up, I asked her, in a kind of casual chat, like just bringing up a topic, "Do you remember that house? Did you ever see anything?" She took a while to answer, and when she did, it wasn't with fear. It was with an old tiredness. I used to see a shadow in my bedroom doorway sometimes. She said this looking at the floor, as if she didn't want me to see her expression. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to put that inside you kids. Then she took a deep breath and added, "I thought it was a man." As if someone had stayed there. I asked, "Who?" But she didn't say. She just repeated that she didn't want to put that inside us, as if saying that person's name would give them permission. Today, as an adult, I can explain a lot of things. Pipe noises, wood creaking, a bad dream, anxiety. I can make a whole list of reasons. But there's one part that doesn't fit on any list. Because sometimes, on a very quiet night, when I'm lying down and the house is too still, I still hear, very faintly, that rough sound, like something, somewhere, is scratching wood just to remind me it knows where I sleep. And I ask you seriously, if it were you, would you have stayed in that house? Or would you have done what I couldn't do back then, and told everything without trying to be brave? Because some things we call childhood memories, just so we don't admit they're still happening in some way. And the worst part is thinking about this. What if it wasn't the house? What if it was someone who came with us? So, what did you think? Because in the end, what really gets you about these memories isn't the scare. It's the tiny detail. It's the how did this happen? It's the why me. And most importantly, it's the fact that when you were a kid, nobody took you seriously. And now, as an adult, you can't unsee it. So do this. Comment below what story was the worst part for you, and if you're brave enough, also share a childhood memory that still has no explanation. I'll read them and might feature them in a future video. And if you enjoy this kind of story, realistic, slow, that closes in on you, hit the like button so I know you want more. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss the next ones, because I'll keep bringing stories like these. And some of them, I warn you, will stir up a kind of memory we usually pretend to forget. Now, check if the door is properly closed. Take a quick look at the corners of your room, just to be safe, and I'll see you in the next video.